Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me start just where my friend from New York left off. I was encouraged to hear my good friend from New York embrace the idea of a bipartisan commission. We have that bill in our package of reforms, and I would invite the gentleman, my good friend, to look at that, to co-sponsor. I'd love to work with you on a bipartisan commission reform. Also, the gentleman expresses concern about our one big beautiful bill, which reduces the funding formula for the Bureau. And I would encourage the gentleman and all my friends on the other side of the aisle to look at co-sponsoring my legislation that would allow them and us to reclaim the power of the purse over the agency. The TABS Act, the Taking Account of Bureaucrats Spending Act, which would restore Congress's bipartisan and meaningful oversight over the Bureau so that we would control the appropriations. So I think the gentleman's line of questioning is timely because it gives us an opportunity in the Congress on a bipartisan basis to reclaim our oversight functions over the Bureau. Ms. Johnson, let's talk about CFPB reform. Would you explain how my legislation, the Taking Account of Bureaucrats Spending Act, which would subject the Bureau to congressional appropriations, would enhance accountability and limit bureaucratic overreach?
I think that for far too long, the CFPB has not been accountable. We haven't had a commission. We haven't had consensus or dissenting views welcomed at the Bureau. It's been by one director, and oftentimes they've got kind of ruling by fiat. So Congress hasn't had the authority and the visibility into the Bureau. I think that they will be more responsive if there is an ability for you all to control the purse strings.
And I appreciate your testimony endorsing my legislation to put some guardrails and definition around the abusiveness prong of UDAP. Why is that important?
Look, Congress did create an exceptional standard for UDAP with the CFPB, unlike FTC, unlike some of the other prudential regulators. And for far too long, it has been undefined, and entities that are regulated by the CFPB don't have the clarity needed to understand what constitutes as an abusive act or practice, what constitutes, and how that differs from, say, deceptive or unfair acts and practices. And then, in addition to that, the CFPB has at times gone far beyond and really interpreted UDAP into things that it never was intended for. Oftentimes, it actually decides one day that something is illegal or that it's a UDAP violation when it was perfectly legal and acceptable and actually done by the entire industry the day before. Then it applies retroactively penalties to different institutions.
Yeah,
it's just wrong.
Yeah, and it's wrong. It denies Americans due process, and it's why the Bureau has such a black eye. It can be reformed into a much more professional agency, and that's also why we need to stop these roving fishing expeditions, these civil investigative demands with no statutory violation or regulatory violation even alleged, just a fishing expedition with no due process. We need to reform that process as well.